Welcome to the Canby City Council meeting for January 2nd, 2019. I get used to saying that. If you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Lord, I pray to you for so many things. First off, thanks for this great community. Thank you for the leaders that are up here on this dais here tonight and the new one that is coming on board. I pray for your wisdom and your guidance, and you provide me with both of those. I pray for our city as we move into a new year, and that we're all very hopeful, and that we're all very positive looking forward into the future. There's a lot before us coming up, and I just ask for guidance over the next 12 months, next couple of years as we move into the future for this city. I ask these in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Well, next on the agenda is a presentation to Councilor Smith. So I'm going to read the plaque, and then I'm going to bring him down front, and I'm going to say a few things about him. So this plaque is being presented to Tyler Smith in recognition and appreciation of your 2 years of service on the Canby City Council and for your untiring dedication and commitment toward the betterment of the city of Canby, January 2019. So Councilor Smith, if you want to come down here, sir. So I just want to present that to you. I'll give you a little plastic sleeve here so you can, get it home safely. I just want to say, frankly, Tyler, thank you. It's been an interesting 2 years. Came on with quite a flurry, but I think Tyler filled the role appropriately and very well. We needed somebody with his background in land use and planning, and he filled that role impeccably. You were a huge help to me and hopefully the rest of the council in that area. You did a lot of great things, and I'm going to miss having you on the council. So thank you very much for
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. Can I come back up for a couple minutes?
Yes, you can.
Sean gets the seat warm here.
Warm up the seat for Sean.
Next on our agenda is the swearing-in ceremony, and I think we've got Judge Graff. There he is.
There he is.
He's blending in. So, Judge, who would you like to swear in first?
How about that, council?
Perfect.
So, that would be Sean Varwig and Tracy Height.
So we just stand.
You just stand right
Okay.
there. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Tracy Height,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I've been duly elected to the office of City Councilor
that I have been duly elected to the office of City Councilor
of the City of Canby
of the City of Canby
at the general election on November 6, 2018,
at the general election of November 6, 2018,
that I am a qualified elector of the City of Canby,
and I am a qualified elector of the City of Canby,
and that I have resided in the City of Canby, Oregon,
and that I have resided in the City of Canby, Oregon,
for not less than 12 months,
for not less than 12 months,
immediately prior to November 6, 2018,
immediately prior to November 6, 2018.
and I will support the Constitution and laws
And I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States and the State of Oregon,
of the United States
And the state of Oregon,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of City Councilor of the City of Canby,
of the office of City Councilor of the City of Canby,
to which I have been elected.
to which I have been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
So here's one for you, Tracy. Just sign right there and then Sharon, you sign there.
All right. One pen. Ladies first.
And hopefully- Okay.
Thanks, Tyler.
That's all one signature on this one.
Maybe we'll get a photo op with you before you leave, Judge.
Sure.
Yeah, who's got the camera? Somebody have a camera? Anybody?
Yeah, what do you need, Tracy?
Thank you. All right. Yeah?
Sure.
All right.
You
Okay.
bet.
Here we go. Oh, my sister.
Your sister.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You bet.
Your Honor, Your Honor. Your collection.
Now you're official.
Judge.
One more time around the radio.
One more time, raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Brian Hodson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I was elected to the office of mayor
that I was elected to the office of mayor
of the city of Canby
of the city of Canby
at the general election on November 6, 2018.
on the general election on November 6, 2018,
That I am a qualified elector of the city of Canby
and I am a qualified elector of the city of Canby,
and that I have resided in the city of Canby
and I have resided in the city of Canby
for not less than 12 months
for not less than 12 months
immediately prior
immediately prior
to November 6, 2018.
to November 6, 2018,
And that I will support the Constitution and laws
and I will support the Constitution and laws
of the United States and the state of Oregon,
of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and faithfully perform the duties
of the office of mayor of the city of Canby,
of the office of mayor of the city of Canby,
to which I have been elected.
to the office to which I've been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
So. You gotta sign
That's the most important part,
this
right?
right there, yep.
And the photo op, right.
You gotta have a photo.
That's right.
I was just real excited to get into the public hearing tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, you betcha.
Appreciate it.
Now you're official.
I'm official again.
Now you can hear me.
So that concludes the swearing-in ceremony. If you want to stay, you're more than welcome. We encourage it. If not, I'll give you a minute or so to clear the auditorium, and we'll move into our business. Thank you all for coming. Bye, kids. Yeah.
Run, save yourselves.
But there's an annexation on the document. I'm actually glad to see the population of the room decrease by like half, which means the public hearing shouldn't take forever. This is good.
All right, well, that's loaning. We'll move into communications this evening.
Nothing at this time.
Robinson. Nothing at this time, okay. All right, next agenda item is citizen input and community announcements. So this is your opportunity to address the council on non-agenda items. You have about 3 minutes to make an announcement or bring something forth to the council that you'd like us to take a look at and address. And it'll be either something we can answer tonight, or we'll add it to a future agenda for conversation. I have one card, so on the back, there's these yellow cards. If you want to fill it out, and please bring it to Ms. Schaefer, our city recorder, and Regina wants to talk to us about our website. Hi, Regina.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. Happy New Year.
Welcome to 2019.
Yes.
So I thought I'd ask the city for a New Year's resolution from them to update the city website. In particular, two areas, one that I think is an error, and some others that I just think need to be updated. And I thought it'd probably be easier for you to see what I'm talking about rather than try to remember what the website looks like. The first thing, I'd like to see the city update. If you could please have your webmaster update where the comprehensive plan link is, because it links to the 2007 version, and we have a November 2015 version that I think would be more appropriate for us to use. You can see where that is there on the larger page. And then the second one is that I find the maps to be confusing. The map that's at the top of the page, which is listed as Comprehensive Plan Map 2014, is our prospective map. It's not the one that's currently active. The one that is active is the one at the bottom of the page that says Citywide Official Zoning Map. I would really like to see that moved up to the top. And then there's 3 links on this page that are dead. They're the ones that says bike and pedestrian routes, doesn't go anywhere. The city parks, there's no link for that. And then towards the bottom of the webpage, it says Downtown Canby Overlay District and Sub-Area Map. That's also a dead map, no, dead link. And if you look on the back of this page, it just shows where you have to go to actually find the 2015 comprehensive plan. And I just think it should be linked from the front page. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Regina. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For us to use.
Yeah, Regina, thank you. We'll definitely take a look at what we can do about getting some of that cleaned up. Like you said, I'm sure so a couple years ago, when we had an assistant city recorder, her job was doing a lot of like our social media and keeping up on some of our web stuff. And so some of these things were projects that have been started, and I guess it just kind of, we've moved them down the list a little bit, but appreciate the heads up, and we'll definitely see what we can do about getting some of these things cleaned up. Thank you. I have no other yellow cards, so we'll move into mayor's business. A couple of things of note. First off, let me say Happy New Year, Happy 2019. Councilor Varwig, welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you know what you got yourself in for.
I'll find it very soon, I'm sure.
Welcome to the jungle, my friend.
Yes, yes. As you can see, we've moved up some seats, so thank you, Councilor Height, for moving over there into slot 1. She gets to start the firing range here on most of the evening, so with our question and answers and those kinds of things. But I'll save a lot more for the next meeting when we have all of our councilors here for some further just kind of update and where things are kind of going here in the next couple of years. So in the meantime, a couple of things just to make everyone aware of. So the Canby Ferry has been a hot topic of conversation. So there's going to be 2 presentations of the county's work on that. The first one is going to be Tuesday, January 8th, and that's going to be at the Canby Chamber of Commerce Luncheon. That's 11:30, Tuesday the 8th. It's at Cuts First Town Hall in their upstairs kind of meeting space, so that the county will be there to present the kind of their findings on feedback on the Canby Ferry, and I'm proposing a couple of ideas as what they might be looking at doing. The second one is going to be Tuesday, January 15th, and that's going to be at 6 o'clock at Canby Foursquare Church. I guess that's going to be the east end of town. Get my bearings on your way out towards Oregon City. So again, that the 8th, 11:30 a.m. Cuts First Town Hall, and then Tuesday the 15th at Canby Foursquare Church at 6 o'clock. And they think that it'll probably go till about 8:30 with some Q&A and whatnot. So if you can be there, please do that. I know that they'll be taking questions and answers and comments as well. Second thing, Clackamas County vehicle registration fee. Public meetings have been, from the county have been concluded. They wrapped those up here in December. And as a reminder, so the county is looking at taking an increase of $30 per vehicle registration, and that'll go to road repairs and road investments here in the coming years. The commissioner hearings are yet to be scheduled, but they will be coming up, so as I hear more and know more, I'll let you all know on what that will look like, as well as the community know. Next meeting, moving on to Park Advisory Board. So next meeting, the Park Advisory Board is going to be coming with 2 recommendations to us. The first one is regarding moving forward with the installation of a splash pad. So they're going to be coming with that recommendation, as well as a recommendation of which park that we should seriously consider for that piece. They've done quite a bit of conversation on pros and cons of a couple of different parks here in town. And so I've asked them to come and actually make a presentation a little bit to us on their process and what led them to the decision that they've come to. So that'll be at our next meeting to get the recommendation, and then we'll probably schedule that either as a work session or as a council item in future agendas. The second piece that will be coming from the Park Advisory Board is going to be regarding an Ackerman field, say this 3 times fast, Ackerman field feasibility study. So, and as I've had my one-on-ones with all of you here leading up to this meeting, so there's been a small group that's been working from the school district and from the city about taking the field area behind Ackerman Junior High and Lee Elementary and looking at that as a possible field complex. There's a greater vision and greater conversation that's occurring, but the first piece that we all want to look at is this field aspect. So it's so the Park and Rec Advisory Board and I will present at the next meeting kind of what that next step is going to look like, and what we're going to be looking for from the council is just some consensus to have staff move forward with that next step of taking a look at a feasibility piece. So I'll have greater detail on terms of kind of what we're looking at in the field and what some potential possibilities are. I think we have a pretty close guesstimate on the cost of this feasibility piece, but that's the first step we want to take to determine whether or not we even want to move forward, the Park Advisory Board wants to move forward, or the school board wants to move forward. So right now, in conversation, Park Advisory Board is very interested in what it could look like to do a field complex back there, as is the school district. The greater conversation is then what's the school district's plan for Ackerman? What could that potentially lead to? So there's a lot of conversation still on this, but these are some preliminary things that I'm really, really excited about seeing and whatnot. So those are pieces that are coming our way immediately. So that is all that I have for right now. We'll move into, I guess, official liaison reports, if there are any.
Yeah.
Councilor Height.
There's not much, but
Okay.
the school board did meet in mid-December, and Mr. Purdy of Baker Prairie Middle School was nominated for the CARE Award, which is basically the Teacher of the Month Award. He teaches math at Baker Prairie, and so that was quite an honor for him. A former student actually nominated him, which was kind of special. And then there was a spotlight on student success. Every month they do that, and Lee School was spotlighted for their caring and compassion. They made a video, like a 5-minute video. Their principal showcased that, and it was pretty sweet. It was pretty special. Like, I think those kids are in good hands at Lee School. It's a great culture there, so that was neat. But nothing else really relevant to this group at the school board meeting. And that's all I have.
All right.
Except for Happy New Year. How about that?
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a big liaison report, as I missed a few meetings last month, but I do want to thank you and my fellow counselors and the community for some grace and missing some meetings last month, as I lost my dad. So It's been a rough time, and but we're ready for a new year. And I have, so don't make me cry. Traffic Safety Commission is next week, C4 is tomorrow, and I do want to also let you all know, though, that the Suicide Prevention Task Force has been meeting regularly, and we've been working with the school district on some curriculum that's going to go in the new year here. We're actually going to be implementing some things, it looks like, in the spring with a Talk About It campaign, and we're going to be working with them, and we're still doing some fundraising. So a lot of good things are happening on that front, so I wanted to let you know about that. And that's all I have. Happy New Year.
Great. And just to let you know, to free up your Thursday evening, there is no C4 meeting tomorrow night.
Excellent. Okay.
Gift of time.
I got a gift of a night off. Okay. One I don't have to make excuses for. Thank you.
Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Parker has asked me to read his liaison report for the Historic Landmark Commission. Excuse me. They are anticipating a public hearing on potential alterations to the Hawley Street City Hall. That's our old City Hall, which is a historic building. And they want to thank our own City Attorney, Joe Lindsay, for coaching them on the do's and don'ts and ins and outs of proper public hearings. So passing on their thanks. And they also have been coached by the State Heritage staff. So thank you, Joe, on their behalf. And the Historic Landmark Commission has voted to send a letter to county commissioners opposing the closure of the Canby Ferry.
Great.
For Canby Utility, it seems to be 'tis the season to master plan, both for the city and Canby Utility as well. They are starting on their water master plan, looking out for the next 30 years. It's been a long time since they've taken that look. They've retained a nationally known consultancy to help them with that, and they've invited yours truly to attend the first meeting tomorrow. So I'll be doing that in the morning, and I'll update you all after that. Those of us who are customers of Canby Utility, which is everyone in the city of Canby that has power. You may have noticed in your bill a flyer about the Share of the Warmth program, which Canby Utility does every year. And that's funded largely by Canby Utility customers who lend a few dollars to help out their fellow citizens to pay their electric bills in tough times during the winter. If you are interested in contributing to that, it is tax deductible, and you can send that to Canby Utility. If you're interested in applying for the program, you can also contact Canby Utility or the Canby Adult Center, and they will help you out down that path. And then finally, for Canby Utility, they have a board opening coming up with the new year. Applications can be found on the city's website online, or you can drop by City Hall upstairs at the administration desk and pick up one, or call our city recorder's department at 503-266-0733. The position is a pretty typical board position. They meet at least once a month, sometimes a couple times a month if they have workshops, just like we do. Sometimes they travel for training, and every now and then you can get kind of a cool tour up at BPA. So I'm not making any promises. I don't know if they have any inside the dam tours scheduled for the next year or two, but it's a great way to be involved within your community. You'll get to see the ins and outs of how a utility operates, and you'll get to be the person that helps decide what utility bills are. So all good fun there. It really is a rewarding experience, and they have an opening, so I encourage you to apply. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Varley.
Well, I have nothing since I've been in this role for all of 8 minutes now, but I look forward to having a report at the next meeting, and I do just want to say thank you to everybody in Canby who voted for me, and for the others who are still here, and thank you to all of you, and I'm looking forward to getting to know this job a little bit more, and look to all of you for your expertise, and I'm honored to be up here with you guys. So thank you to everybody, and thank you to you guys, and Happy New Year.
Councilor Spoon.
Happy New Year, Mr. Mayor.
Happy New Year.
CTV5 is working right now on the kind of a 5-year visioning for what that organization can look like in the coming several years. I was out of town for my other liaison appointments, but I'm hoping to catch up with them all this month. But mostly, I just want to thank the city of Canby. We had an amazing holiday season between all of the food drives, the giving trees, the really citizen-driven efforts from the snowman competition. We had all sorts of activities, people volunteering to be designated drivers on social media on New Year's Eve, and it just really reminded me how much I care about and love this community and why I raised my family here. And I wanted to thank Councilor Smith for his input. I'm going to miss his expertise, particularly on land use issues, but I appreciate his service, and I wanted to welcome you, Sean. I know how much you have a heart for our community, so welcome, Councilor Varwick. I look forward to working with you.
Same.
Happy New Year, Canby.
Great, thank you. We'll move into the consent agenda this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the December 15th, 2018 City Council regular meeting, the appointment of Jeff Mills to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2021, the appointment of Jennifer Trendy to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2021, and the appointment of Ryan Adams to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2020, and a new liquor license application for Odd Moe's Pizza.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which include the adoption of the minutes of the December 5th, 2018 City Council regular meeting, appointment of Jeff Mills to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2021, appointment of Jennifer Trundy to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2021, and appointment of Ryan Adams to the Planning Commission for a term to end on December 31st, 2020, and a new liquor license application for Odd Moe's Pizza. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0. Move into our public hearing this evening. So our first public hearing of the year is annexation 18-04/zone change 18-05 Swelland. So I'll read our little procedure here and we'll get into it. The matter before the City Council is a request to annex property into the City of Canby. Canby Municipal Code 16.84.050 requires the council to conduct a public hearing to evaluate the proposed annexation application and determine the appropriate zone designation upon annexation. This matter requires a public hearing, and all interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this application, please fill out a yellow public testimony card. At the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name, address, and interest in the matter. Those people interested in testifying, please indicate that desire by raising your hand at this time. You may be limited by time for your presentation. The applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be allowed 3 minutes each, and the opponents will be allowed 3 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 minutes for rebuttal. Testimony and evidence must be directed to the applicable criteria listed in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations which you believe applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. All questions will be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. Conflict of interest. At this time, I would ask any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest, please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter. Councilor Height?
No conflict, plan to participate?
Councilor Hensley?
No conflict, plan to participate.
Council President Dale?
No conflict, will participate.
Councilor Varwick?
I was part of the voting body during the Planning Commission when this came before the Planning Commission, so I believe it's probably best for me to abstain from a vote tonight.
Yeah, so you can just recuse yourself for this vote.
I recuse myself from this vote.
Perfect.
Excellent. And Councilor Spoon?
I have no conflict, and I plan to participate.
Great, thank you. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Councilor Height?
No contact?
All right. Councilor Hensley?
No contact, familiar with the site.
Council President Dale?
Likewise, familiar with the site, but no ex parte contact.
All right. Councilor Barwig?
Abstaining.
Abstain. Perfect. Counselor Spoon?
I had a person at Gwynn's Coffee House mention to me that it was on the agenda tonight and wanted to talk about it, and I did not talk about it, but they did approach me about it, so.
Great. And you do plan to participate then?
I do plan to participate.
So I have had no conflicts of interest nor ex parte contact and will participate as need be. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. There will be staff report, questions by staff, by the hearing body. I will then open the public hearing for testimony. So as I said, the applicant will have, I believe I said 15 minutes. The proponents, 3 minutes, opponents, 3 minutes, and then rebuttal of 10 minutes. I will then close the public testimony, questions, if any, by the hearing body, and then discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the council at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future for further action by this body. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. City Council's decision regarding the annexation application is final and will be reflected with a first and second reading of the associated annexation ordinance. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing? No? Great. We'll go into our staff report. Mr. Brown, hello. Happy New Year.
Hello. Thank you for the New Year wishes, and I'm glad you're all here to enjoy the new year, and I'm glad to participate as well.
There's a whole lot of gladness going on now. I love it.
It's a joyful new year.
Here we go, yes.
So real quickly on the PowerPoint program, you'll see the review criteria that applies to an annexation, or annexation ordinance 16.84. There's also an associated a map amendment to our zoning map, and so that section of the code is applicable. And the review procedures that are in 1689 for these two type of applications. And then the chapter that talks about the zoning district that we will be assigning to this particular, if approved, this annexation request tonight. We also make representation to anything that might be in the comprehensive plan that isn't represented in our development code, and in this particular case, there really is none that are applicable, and the state statutes are always mentioned. And if there's anything in our urban growth boundary management agreement with the county, we have that as review criteria as well. This slide shows in the red hatched area the 5.03 acre proposed annexation. It's on the east side of North Redwood Street. The current zoning is represented on this map just to the south. You'll have in that bright yellowish is the R1.5 medium density zoning district that this property abuts to. Property to the north is not in the city limits at this time. And further south, the R2 on that map with the different color of yellow is the high density zoning district. And most of the area on further north would be coming in as R1 zone. So there are the three different residential densities within this distance from the south edge on up north along the east side of North Redwood. This property is part of the North Redwood concept plan, which by our annexation ordinance was required to be approved before we could consider any individual property within the defined areas shown on the map in the annexation ordinance. And in this particular case, that North Redwood plan was already approved. It was a city project in 2015, so the applicant did not have to worry about that aspect. And the applicant also indicated in their submittal and at the Planning Commission that they don't actually intend to develop the property themselves. They most likely will end up selling the property. And that buyer can decide if and when they want to develop the property. If they were to sell the property and a developer purchase it, it does have the potential for approximately 30 residential R1.5 size lots, which range from 5,000 to 6,500 square feet. And so, give or take, depending on what size lots they actually do and what the street configuration would really be. Because the North Redwood concept plan was adopted, any development proposal that would be proposed in the future would have to conform with that plan that talks about where the circulation streets would match up with the rest of the properties in the plan, and how it would best be served by extension of all necessary infrastructures, and how there's actually a plan, as you remember, for parkland dedication. However, this particular property, if developed, would not dedicate any park. Other properties in this concept plan area were taking care of the parkland dedication. So that makes this a little more straightforward as well. The star on this assessor's map shows you that tax lot. It is a single tax lot. They're also annexing the adjacent portion of North Redwood Street. That's 0.18 acres of right-of-way will go along with the real property, which is the tax lot itself. And this is the adopted concept plan map. And where the blue star is located is the tax lot that is up for annexation tonight. So most likely, if developed in the future, there would be a street extension from eastward from North Redwood, which is 13th. I can't tell whether that's place or I believe. And possible other connections, you know, inside this property. With that in mind, it's staff's opinion that it will be somewhat difficult for this property to develop on its own. It's more likely to be combined with a property to the north or south to really make a logical subdivision. It could potentially develop on its own, and we tried to design the concept plan so each individual property could do development on their own. But some are in a position where it might be better to try to combine it with others and do it all at once. So we'll just have to see how that plays out in the future. I just had a couple review criteria just to highlight here, as they did hold their pre-annexation meeting. They had a neighborhood meeting. They had a survey done that helped us provide the legal description that we'll need, and with the attached ordinance. And that included the adjacent North Redwood Street right-of-way. All that will end up being sent to the state for their review and approval. The transportation planning rule had an analysis performed for that the applicant paid for, that just says that the proposed change in the zoning was accounted for and planned for in our adopted transportation system plan. Therefore, it took into account the future development of this tract as if it was going to be zoned R1.5. And any projects that might be necessary because of that are already designed in the transportation plan and listed, such as intersection improvements or any widening and those kind of things. So that's a state requirement that we have that demonstrate. The main review criteria in the annexation ordinance, as you know, is making sure that all necessary infrastructure can be in place or will be in place. And as you know, most subdividers that develop property are responsible for the actual extension of those necessary lines and such, both to and within their proposed subdivision. With the adoption of the North Canby Redwood Master Plan, we know how the entire area is to be served and where those lines and such are going to be extended from. So there were no concerns about that. The Planning Commission found those criteria were met. The applicant themselves did not really provide us a analysis of the need for additional property. However, you've been a part of 2 recent annexations that were before you that provided fairly extensive analysis, and we've had more than 2 recently, and each one has different conclusions, but they're all fairly similar, and they're all saying that we're pretty close to having a 3-year supply of land now. The very last one we had actually said, you'll probably have that 3-year supply after you annex our property. Others have said, we're probably a bit shy of that 3-year land supply right now. And the council, not this council, but past council, helped us with a policy that said, hey, let's make it easier on staff to determine that 3-year land supply. Let's count approved platted lots. How many of those do you currently have or vacant land that will be able to be platted? So what all of the studies that we've had done in the past have basically indicated that if all of the platted lots that are represented in all of the subdivisions that we have approved do actually build out in a reasonable time frame, which is about a 2-year period, then we're right at that 3-year land supply. Those are all assumptions. You don't know how quickly they're going to build out and the platted lots or the plat recorded and those lots will actually be available to say that there's an actual 3-year supply. So you're going to hear in another annexation shortly that's up north of town, north of Territorial, that there is not a 3-year land supply yet. And that's based upon their assumptions and analysis of when all of those already approved subdivisions will actually come online. And so today, if you don't count the plats that haven't been filed of record yet from subdivisions we've approved, we are far short of a 3-year supply. It's all of those that have been approved that haven't had the infrastructure constructed and their plats filed. That's where you get our 3-year land supply that would be met at that time. The Planning Commission, after reviewing the staff report and the applicant's submittal, they found that the review criteria were met, and they recommended to the City Council that the annexation as requested be approved, and that the R1.5 zone district be assigned, which is in accordance with the comprehensive plan and the adopted North Redwood concept plan. Are there any questions?
I have a question for Mr. City Attorney. So we're hearing tonight in the annexation and zone change. Should these be separated in terms of our conversation and decision-making, or is this combined decision tonight?
It's a combined decision, and I'm sure Director Brown could handle this one too. The concept plan, the development concept plan, actually called for this to be medium density, right? That's why they're asking for the 1.5, is because it was earmarked as such, because it's closer to the higher density areas. So I think they're just following the concept plan, so that's why they're asking for what the concept plan calls for.
Okay.
All right.
Well, in addition, just to make sure that's understood, you wouldn't want to approve the annexation but not assign the new zoning district. I mean, those do go together, and so vice versa. You're not going to approve a new zoning district but not annex it.
Okay. Well, that's why I just wanted to make sure that clarification was out there, because that does answer my other question, because if I remember from when we laid out this plan for this area, there was the transitioning from that R2 to R1.5 to R1 was that initial plan, so that fits in that,
That's right.
that piece. Okay, perfect. Did you have any questions, Councilor Wright?
No, not right now.
Okay. Councilor Hensley, any questions?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
No, sir, good job.
No. Councilor Spoon.
I have one, and it's somewhere between specific to this in general, but I just want to understand our agency and role. When we talk about land supply and how that impacts our capacity and agency in terms of authorizing or rejecting annexations in general, but also I guess specifically to this, how do we compare taking into account land that we've annexed in versus planned subdivisions that actually haven't submitted applications? Like where does our agency fall in terms of comparing an application compared to our actual land supply legally? Does my question make sense to you?
Well,
Yeah.
the 3-year mark is kind of a helpful guide in a way,
Right.
and it's a floor in that if somebody comes to you and you don't have a 3-year supply, they make an extremely compelling argument. Look, you don't have even a 3-year supply. You got to let us do this.
Right.
It becomes a little more, I guess, ambiguous in a way if it's over the 3-year supply. But being over a 3-year supply isn't fatal to
Right.
a plan. So it's one of those areas where, we look in 3-year sections, we look in then 20-year sections, when we look at planning. But it shouldn't be an automatic detriment if you think you're a little bit over the 3-year supply, especially if you're in a time of building. But it would it's definitely a feather in the cap of the development if you don't have a 3-year supply and they're asking for something.
Sure. So my question was more like, when we're talking about that magical 3-year supply, that 3-year supply that's out there, are we supposed to take into account subdivisions land we've annexed in with planned subdivisions that haven't applied yet? Like when are we talking about that 3-year mark?
Well, I've seen different people divide up in different ways, and this is really up to you, I guess, what you think the policy is, because you're the policymakers. But, one way to look at it is how much R1 do you have and how that compares with other R1s. This is R1.5, so you could even break it down like that and say, how much R1.5 do we have in town, and whether that changes the way. And that seems to be the policy or the way in which the policymakers in the near distant past have looked at it. So
Zoning to zoning.
Yeah.
Apples to apples. Okay. No, that helps me. I was curious mostly because Brian brought it up that, that we're talking about what is a 3-year land supply, and they didn't lay it out specifically, but each individual applicant could interpret it differently. And I just wanted to know if there was a particular way that you felt like we should be interpreting it. But it sounds like you're saying
It's up to you.
really up to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I did have a quick one for Brian, I forgot.
Yes.
Brian, when you say that we're, reasonably getting close to capacity, is that on the R1.5 or that and R1? I'm just curious.
It's actually, we've had more R1.5 annexed recently, and that was where we had the greatest deficiency.
Right.
And so there's probably more R1.5 in our future for development right now than there is R1.
Okay.
And so I think you're going to hear that argument on another future annexation, that, hey, you've annexed plenty of R1.5, but you haven't annexed very much R1.
Are we getting close on R1?
I don't know.
In your
that
opinion's fine.
I think there actually is a bit of a shortage in the
Okay.
R1 at this
That's good
time.
enough. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. So, Brian, 2 questions I have. So, by the change of making this R1.5, does the developer that ends up picking this up or buying this property, is it limited to single-family housing, or are they able to do duplexes or more?
I believe a duplex is allowed in the R1.5.
It is. Okay.
Attached single-family is an allowed use in the R1.5.
Okay. And my last question is you brought up the road layout from the master plan. Does the developer, are they required to follow that concept plan roadmap, the actual roads we're talking about?
The concept plan has a list of characteristics that they think are fairly critical, and one of those in that list is that they believe 5 connections onto North Redwood should be provided, and that means where it's showing connections, pretty much need to happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 connections. Where those connections are could potentially be moved. We've already moved the very northern one. It showed it connecting to 18th. Well, we've now moved it, the previous subdivision and application that we've approved, and it's,
Because the northern part of that plan has
that-
been,
has been altered now.
okay. and it is
It's
under
not
construction.
that different than this, but the outer edge near the park doesn't keep sweeping around up to 18th. That's the part that's been changed. There's still 2 streets heading straight up in the middle to serve that area. But there's not a sweeping, I don't know how to even show, you can't. This area right here is what's been removed, this sweeping part right there.
Okay.
Can't get it to do it.
To follow the lot line more, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
was trying to make the main collector, the main collector around the inner edge on the east side is supposed to be a route that a future bus route in town would take.
Okay.
It would sweep in from the south end of Redwood and sweep through this development and go out now on 17th rather than on the 18th. That's what was primarily changed.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks for the history lesson. That's all that I had. Any other questions for Brian at this point?
Good, thanks.
No? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Well, I will officially open up the public hearing, and we'll consider that open, and we'll hear from the applicant. Want to come give us a... Yes, if you want to come up and tell us about the, I guess, your portion of the presentation, if you'd like.
Sure, really. Thank you very much for, he has said everything that I think that, oh, my name is Lisa Swelland. I'm here with my husband, Brian Swelland, and sister-in-law, Cindy Swelland. And really, mainly, we are not saying that it's going up for development right now. We're just putting it up for annexation and zone change. So, you know, all the developing talk and stuff is not up to us. It's just, right now, this is what we're doing. And then I'm sure in the future, you'll have to deal with that with whoever purchases it, if they even, they might want to keep the 5 acres, I'm not sure. But I guess everything was already said before. The Planning Commission thought that it was a good idea. They approved it, and so,
Okay.
thank you so much,
Yeah,
and
thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Are there any, I don't have any cards for anyone speaking in favor of this? Anyone opposed to this annexation and zone change? Okay, no need for rebuttal. I will close the public hearing. Any other questions at all?
No, sir.
No? Discussion items?
No, it feels pretty straightforward to me.
What's the recommended motion? Somebody else?
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, I think the staff report was spot on, and I think as Director Brown was saying, in based on what we read, I mean, this is pretty much fits with that plan and what's occurring currently in that part of town. So,
It's really helpful also when you have the concept plan already in place. It's
Yeah.
like, here it is.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it makes the criteria that much easier, so.
I agree.
there
The
we
rest
go.
of the puzzle's already there, it's just a piece.
Right.
Well, that goes back to our earlier conversations of doing a concept plan or not doing a concept plan, and I'm sure, you know, we've had that conversation, you know, recently as well, and so, and this is a case where I think it gives all property owners involved at least an idea of what could be done along that stretch through there, or anywhere in town with their property, so, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I move to approve the Swellen Annexation Zone Change File ANN 18-04, ZC 18-05 pursuant to the recommendation forwarded by the Planning Commission.
Second.
motion's been made by Counselor Hensley and seconded by Counselor Height to approve the Swellen Annexation Zone Change File ANN 18-04, 2018/ZC18-05 pursuant to the recommendation forwarded by the Planning Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstention? One. Cool. That passes 4-0-1. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, guys. Moving to resolutions and ordinances.
The first item we have is ordinance 1497. This is before you for second reading. This is amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04, excuse me, City Traffic Code.
Yeah, so this, we heard initial iteration of changes at the December meeting, just kind of changing some of the verbiage, addressing the issue of truck signage, truck route signage within the city of Canby and how, and specific to some of the pieces on Southwest 13th, and so, but really signage throughout Canby. So we just added some verbiage on what's local route, what qualifies as a local delivery truck versus, and what size, et cetera. So, Joe, am I leaving anything out in that recap?
No, and it just gave a little more definitive definitions to local trucks and local routes, but also maybe a few more opportunities for signage in the future, but it did not change in any way the truck routes in town, so, because that would require its own public hearing, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, the main piece was to try to eliminate, or I don't know if penalize is the right word, but we'll use it, trucks that are opting to not use designated truck routes through Canby. So anything coming through town and not using the local truck route. So for example, there's that, I'll use 13 because that was the point of conversation, because there's that stretch. Therefore, if you're a truck going through Canby, but you didn't start or end in Canby, that would be a violation of just now our ordinance. Whereas if you started in Canby or ending in Canby, then it wouldn't be the case necessarily. So, cool. All right. Any
Mr.
other
Mayor?
question? Yes.
I'm just going to make a motion.
Go for it.
I move we approve ordinance number 1497, ordinance amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04, City Traffic Code.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Hensley and seconded by Counselor Spoon to approve ordinance 1497, amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 10.04, City Traffic Code. Roll call vote.
Counselor Height?
Aye.
Counselor Hensley?
Aye.
Counselor Dale?
Aye.
Counselor Verwig?
Aye.
Counselor Spoon?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
The next item we have is also before you for second reading. It's ordinance 1499. This is authorizing a contract with the Clackamas 800 Radio Group for the purchase of new replacement Motorola radios for the Canby Police Department and declaring an emergency.
Great. So, yeah, recap on this piece is, so basically we are replacing a lot of, in fact, all of the radios and helping with the communication pieces for Canby Police Department based on some grants and things like that. It's coming in at a much more cost-effective piece for the city, which we are very excited about. I think those were the big pieces there. Am I leaving anything out?
No, I would
Mr. Robinson?
just note that because of the group purchasing power, the city's share of the discount was $192,000. Adding to that, $152,000 grant that came to the city to offset the cost. So our net cost for the 56 radios is $55,788. So we came out pretty well on this.
I'll make a motion.
Yes, please.
I move we adopt ordinance 1499, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Clackamas 800 Radio Group for the purchase of new replacement Motorola radios for the Canby Police Department and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made by Counselor Spoon and seconded by Counselor Height to approve ordinance number 1499, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with the Clackamas 800 Radio Group for the purchase of new replacement Motorola radios for the Canby Police Department and declaring an emergency. Discussion?
Well, I would like to know about the E-Clause, of course.
Yeah,
I asked on your behalf.
She did.
yeah, you did.
You were gone, and I said, and on behalf of Counselor Hensley, who's not here, can I ask why we're declaring an emergency?
Awesome. Thank you, Counselor Spoon.
This is one where actually the safety and the welfare hits right home, because the police communications, when
There we
they're,
go. Just wanted it on
When they're-
record, and now I've heard
when
it.
they're responding to emergent situations.
I'll have you know, I even said for the viewers at home, I did the whole bit.
She got it all. She nailed it.
Excellent. Thank you for having my back, Counselor Spoon. All right, I'm good.
Great. Well, if there's no more on that, all those in favor?
Roll call vote.
Oh, dang it.
Counselor Height,
This year.
Aye.
Counselor Hensley.
Aye.
Counselor Dale.
Aye.
Counselor Barwig.
Aye.
Counselor Spoon.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
The next item we have is ordinance 1500. This is the condensed version. You have to read the long version. Proclaiming annexation of 5.03 acres, including 4.84 acres of real property and 0.18 acres of adjacent North Redwood Street right-of-way, amending the zoning and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the city of Canby.
I got it.
Mr. Mayor?
I think so.
Got it.
Sarah, you want it?
I move we adopt ordinance 1500, an ordinance proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 5.03 acres, including 4.84 acres of real property described as tax lots 400 of portion southeast, 1/4, section .34, or section 34, township 3S, range 1E, Willamette Meridian, tax map 31E34B, and approximately 0.18 acres of adjacent North Redwood Street right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5-acre RRFF-5 to city medium-density residential R-1.5 for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the real property to be included within the Canby city limits.
I'll second. That's lots quicker to say.
On these, there's always that race for the second because no one wants to read the first. All right. Perfect. Motion's been made by Counselor Spoon and seconded by Counselor Hensley to approve ordinance number 1500. And again, an ordinance proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 5.03 acres, including 4.84 acres of real property described as tax lots 400 of portion of southeast 1/4, section 34, township 3S, range 1E, and I forget WM.
Willamette Meridian.
Thank you, Willamette Meridian, tax map 31E34B, an approximate 0.18 acres of adjacent North Redwood Street right-of-way, and amending the existing county zoning from rural residential farm forest 5-acre, RRFF-5, to city medium-density residential, R1.5, for the entire area, and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the Canby city limits. Any further discussion, or?
I would assume that I should abstain from this part as well.
But I would think that would make logical sense.
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or an abstention?
Abstention.
Passes 4-0-1. Thank you.
And that was a short one.
And that was a short annexation piece, yes.
Yeah.
Moving into new business, first up is the selection of council president. Currently, council president is very own Councilor Dale. And this is, again, after every election cycle, it's up to the council to decide on who the council president, who they'd like as the council president. So I will let you guys, I'll throw it at your feet to handle this one.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would move to nominate Council President Dale to remain in his seat.
Second.
Is there, do you accept?
If you would accept that nomination.
Thank you. Happy to keep helping. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other? No? Okay.
You're doing a great job. I'll just yell over the tray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that quiet?
How's that quiet zone coming?
That's homecoming, right? That's the Ryan Oliver question of the night.
Well, if there are no others and you'll accept it, all those in favor of Council President Dale remaining as council president? say aye.
Wholehearted aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. Thank you, sir. I
Thank you all.
have
Appreciate it.
appreciated your counsel and your help as these last, just a couple of years.
A few years.
Yeah, so.
Glad to help. Thank you
Appreciate
all.
it. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the liaison roles, and some conversation and sent out email just kind of updating on everyone, so we'll kind of go through it. There is a couple of changes, because I had an omission or an error on the conversation with Counselor Height and Counselor Spoon. I apologize for kind of overloaded Counselor Spoon, so we're going to see if we can alleviate some of that, so I apologize. So I'll just, so on your blue page up here on the front, we'll just kind of go down the list here. So Bike and Ped Committee will be Counselor Parker. The Board of Willamette Falls Heritage Coalition, Counselor Spoon. Bridging Cultures, again, I think Counselor Height and Counselor Spoon have kind of been both filling that role. So I appreciate if you guys would continue that. The Canby Adult Center, that's one of our changes. So I would like to make that Counselor Parker, if he has a problem with that or it's at a time he can't meet. Counselor Varwig, is that something that you could take on if he cannot? Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. And again, Counselor Spoon, thank you for waving the white flag of
I was like, I do have a job in kids.
Right. Canby Fire District will be Counselor Varwig. Canby Independence Day, Kim, I think we're going to remove that as a liaison piece. I think we've got that well established, and I think Counselor Height and Spoon have done a great job in helping manage the waters post the last couple of years. So thank you both for doing that. Canby Public Library will be Counselor Varwig. Canby School District will be Counselor Height, and that was the change that I had left off. So Counselor Height, thank you for catching that. Canby Utility Board will be Counselor Dale. City Budget Committee for now is Counselor Dale. Clackamas County Coordinating Committee will be myself with Counselor Hensley as the alternate. Clackamas County Fair Board is Counselor Parker. CTV 5, Counselor Spoon. Heritage and Landmark Commission is Counselor Parker. Northeast Canby Neighborhood Association is Counselor Height. Park and Recreation Advisory Board will be myself. Planning Commission, Counselor Height. Riverside Neighborhood Association, Counselor Hensley. Southeast Canby Neighborhood Association will be Counselor Varwig. Southwest Canby Neighborhood Association will be Counselor Spoon. Traffic Safety Committee is Counselor Hensley, and Transit Advisory Committee, Counselor Spoon. Everybody seem good? Good workload?
Thank you, sir.
The ask for now is coordinate with each other. If there's anything that needs, information passed along, or just to prepare for your liaison commitments this month. I don't necessarily believe there needs to be a handoff necessarily. If you feel inclined that you want to be there to introduce, because we've got a couple changes in that, that's fine. If not, either through email or please attend your first meetings this month as they come up, so that your advisory boards and committees know who you are and whatnot. Next meeting, I'll go a little bit, I've been thinking a lot about our committees and advisory boards, so hopefully I have some information, maybe kind of what I'd like to see us maybe try to do with our liaison reports, as well as with our boards and committees, to kind of engage them more and involve them more in what we've got going on coming up, because we do have as I alluded to earlier, we do have a very busy couple of years of planning and whatnot coming up for the city, and I want to engage our boards and committees as much as possible with that as we get that going. So we'll have more of the next meeting on that. Great, thank you. Anything else on liaison roles or anything? No? Okay. We'll move into city administrators' business and staff reports.
I have just a few things to update you on. We are moving ahead with the planning and design for the signalization of Sequoia and Hazeldale. It's a high priority, and Jerry Nelzine and I are working with our engineer of record, and we'll be bringing on traffic engineer to do the engineering study that ODOT will require as well. We've already opened an initial dialogue with ODOT on this, as we'll have to coordinate the signal and traffic pattern at 99 in Sequoia, as well as at Hazeldale and Sequoia, to make sure that we don't have traffic backing up into the highway. So that's moving forward full speed right now. My goal is to have that project out to bid this summer, with a goal of having it, and I'm told that this was an ambitious goal, but it's still the goal that I'm holding to, having it constructed before the next Christmas season, so that we can maybe solve some of the traffic backup problems that happen during the holiday season. So that's what we're working towards right now. We are still working with internal staff and external consultants on the identification of a preferred route for a second access road between Highway 99 and our industrial park. We have a couple options that we're still exploring, and we're working both with the consultants and potential property owners that could be affected to see if we can identify the route that will have the least overall negative impact in the community. This can be a work in progress. I anticipate that we'll spend several months before we're able to talk to you about a route that has the greatest probability of ultimate success, both through the ODOT approval process and working with the community that will be affected by any final route. I've reached out to an architect on our downtown arch, and that's a project that I hope to have under contract in January. I'd like to have design done by May, June, and again, have that out to bid. My initial goal was to have it done and up and operating before I retired. I think that may be a little bit over optimistic, but I'm going to do my best to at least have it under construction while I'm still here. It's an important one personally to me. We, as Mayor Hodgson had identified, we've had some initial discussions on identifying outdoor recreational opportunities in the community, discussions with schools and Park and Rec Advisory Board members. I will tell you that we are reaching out to consultants that specialize in this kind of work so we can get some preliminary numbers, and we are not having a lot of luck yet identifying consulting firms that are not so overbooked that they can turn this around to us on relatively short notice. Matilda has reached out to several of her other contacts. We're hopeful that we'll be able to identify somebody that has the requisite knowledge and experience working in Canby, in our park system, that they can come in and not be required to spend quite as much time in order to deliver some preliminary numbers, looking at cost estimates and what ultimate layouts would look like for any kind of outdoor recreational programming. We've taken up the South Ivy Pump Station is a project that we're working on. Jerry Nelzine and I are working on this project. As you know, we need that pump station in order to be able to activate both sides of South Ivy between 13th and the Malala River. We've got developments that are pending there, and that's going to be a critical infrastructure improvement. I have a contract that I'll be bringing to you, engineering firm that's going to do the design work. You'll probably see that on the 16th. Is that right? I think we have it ready to go on the 16th. I'll have to check and see. I think we have it ready to go on the 16th. Yes. And so the engineering contract will be with Kern McLeod. They've given us a good price proposal on the project. We're looking at about an $800,000 project and in construction, and that's probably a little bit conservative. I think the number could be a little higher. But
You said that the last time when we had this,
and it was a little bit higher.
This pump conversation, that you thought the number was conservative.
And it was a little bit higher.
A little bit higher, so.
Yeah, but we've done we've made some changes in how we construct our pump stations in the last year, in that we have increased the holding capacity of the pump stations. We added redundancy, we've added other security measures to reduce, or obviously you can't completely eliminate, but to reduce dramatically the risk of an overflow or a problem with the pump station that we can't immediately access and address. Those types of changes do increase the cost a little bit, but they provide substantial long-term benefits both to the project and to the community. And that's the approach that we're going to take on this project. We know that the Molalla River is a very, very important waterway, and we're going to make sure it's protected as we build out this design, and that does add to the cost. We're just trying to be very conservative in our approach. I'm excited about the design concept, but we'll have it for you as we move forward. We're also working on the IGA, which you will also see, I believe, on the 16th, with the county for the South Ivy improvements between Highway 99 and basically our
13.
It doesn't go quite to 13th. 11th-ish. Yeah, 11th-ish. But we have the final IGA. Got confirmation today that we've made all the changes we need to, so that'll be coming to you as well. Once you approve it, the county will approve it, and the project design will commence. As you know, there's a city cost, there's a county is contributing substantial funds, and we're getting state funding for this project as well. We're also working on a separate IGA with the county. Just initiated it via an email today for access and control of South Ivy right-of-way between 13th and the Molalla River that will need to construct the pump station. So that's a piece of this puzzle. Is similar to what we did on Township here last month in November and December, where we assumed responsibility even though the property had not been annexed into the city. We're kind of in that same situation now, and so we're going to move forward with the intergovernmental agreement, put in place all the approvals necessary to complete the project, and then if an annexation doesn't occur timely, we'll still be able to proceed with the project, have it done in advance of the development. Quiet zone, we've had several meetings on that during the month of December with the engineering firm that is working with us on this project. They've reached out both to ODOT and UP Railroad. We've entered into a separate agreement with UP Railroad that they required in order to confirm a meeting with the city to go over our proposal for improvements to the 3 intersections that will be affected by the quiet zone. I have signed that commitment letter, which is a maximum of $25,000 time and material for UP Railroad to look at our design, to meet with us, and they are, part of their requirement is that they come on site, they do a walkthrough, and then to determine that the proposed changes are consistent with the need of the 3 intersections. And so we've identified funding for that, put it in the budget, and we're ready to move forward on it. It is a new requirement we weren't aware of, so I just wanted to make you aware that is a kind of a side agreement that we have in place right now that will enable us to move forward more quickly in securing the approvals that we need, both from ODOT and from UP Railroad. Once we get that process finished, then we'll be working with BPA on the movement of the power pole and with ODOT on approval of the final design. We did identify a couple other issues that we hadn't identified earlier. As we've discussed this project with you in the past, we've always discussed the improvements to the northeast corner of Elm Street for truck turning radius. We'll actually have to reconstruct a portion of the northwest intersection of Elm Street, across Elm Street, as the redesign is going to require that we construct new ADA ramps, where we have a shared one in the center. Now we'll end up with 2 separate ramps, and so we'll have to tear that corner apart, reconstruct it to make sure that it's ADA accessible and meets all of the federal standards. We know the direction we need to go on that. It'll add a little bit to the construction costs, a little bit to the design costs, but it's necessary to move the project forward. And that completes my report for this evening.
There's a few things there, Rick.
saving up.
I know, it's been a busy month. Regarding Union Pacific, it seems like that occasionally they are, I won't say that they're throwing up roadblocks, but they seem to be moving the goalposts every once in a while on us. Is that the case here?
No, I don't really think so. This has been a loose requirement for the funding, and in theory, other public agencies are not required to make that payment for their time and materials and travel costs associated with visiting the site. But what we have determined is that while we may not be required to enter into that agreement, if we don't enter into that agreement, the likelihood that they'll show up at a scheduled meeting is diminished. And we don't want that to occur, because that'll just slow the process. This way, if we have assured funding, we have the agreement with them, we schedule a time that they'll be there, they know they're going to be reimbursed for the travel. They will, if possible, group multiple destinations in our region together, so that some of those costs are shared among different agencies that are working with them on projects. And that will be one of the things that they'll try to do this time. There are no assurances that that will happen. So what we've identified as our expected exposure maximum of $25,000 is what I would actually expect that we will spend on this to do their design review and site visit and site review. So I wouldn't say they're throwing up roadblocks. I think that what they're doing is, like everybody now, they're trying to find ways to cover their cost.
Okay. Other piece that's for you, Rick, and I just want to commend our Public Works team on tackling the 2nd Avenue street tree issue. I know Jerry and his team were out there reconstructing, the planter boxes for the trees and trying to correct that situation. So I really tip my hat to them and thank them for taking that on and getting after it here over the holidays.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. We did make that a priority here about 3 months ago in conversations, and the goal is to be able to do the street tree improvements between Ivy and on the south side of the road between Ivy and Holly during this winter period, and to repair the sidewalk. As you notice, we took the bricks out. We'll either be replacing the bricks, or more favorably, if we can afford it, we'll be pouring concrete and stamping and coloring. So because you don't have any subsidence if you're using concrete that you sometimes have with the bricks. We are, as we rebuild those planters, if you look down them, they're very substantial now. They're larger than they were. They're more substantial, and we have the root barriers now constructed as a part of the design that we're putting in. One question that you may be asked, and I'll answer it now in advance, is yes, we will still have 3 ADA accessible spots, one of which will be a van accessible, and all will be federally compliant.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Councilor Smith.
Rick, the IGA with the county for South Ivy from 99 to 11th-ish, I know that project is like the improvements, the myth, the legend. I feel like it just gets farther away the more we talk about it. So if we enter this IGA, what do you reasonably feel like the work will happen? What year?
I think it'll happen in 2021. I think it'll happen in, I think the design work is going to go pretty quickly. But once the design work is done, you're still going to have to go to bid. You're going to have to schedule all your contractors. It just, projects of this nature, I don't think it'll be quite as painful as getting to the point that we're at now.
I feel like we've been moving at a glacial speed.
Yeah, well, we were kind of shooting at a moving target, and there were a lot of changes, nuances in the relationships that we had with the county and the county had with the state, and who's going to. We knew that we were not going to be in charge of the design, but we weren't sure whether the county or the state was going to ultimately be responsible. And so there are actually 3 intergovernmental agreements that are in place now, one between the county and the state, one between the city and the county, and then one multi-agency agreement. So we all know who is responsible for which part. This negotiation actually took a little bit longer because when we thought we were done and ready to go, but when we expanded our city boundaries beyond 13th to essentially to our urban growth boundary, that opened up a whole new discussion about, okay, what's going to happen with this roadway, because our initial agreement said that the city was going to take the road from 99 to the city limit. Well, the city limit keeps moving out. So for us, it's been a bit of a challenge to be able to define it. And then there's a difference in reimbursement for those roads that are actually within the city limit and those that are outside, and those that are subject to the improvements based on the original IGA, and those that we are going to be taking ownership and responsibility for that are outside of the scope of the improvements that have been discussed over the last 3 or 4 years. We've got all of those details ironed out as well, and I'm feeling pretty confident that we'll be able to put not only a good project forward based on the original description and definition, but also put in place the next step processes to allow us to continue the improvements out to our urban growth boundary right there at the Malala River Bridge on South Ivy.
So when we actually execute the IGA, what portion will the city take over now at this point?
We'll take over to the city limits now is all we...
Okay, we will take over from 99 to the city limits will become, okay.
And then we'll have another IGA that we'll bring to you that will grant authority for the city to have control of South Ivy from the city limits to our urban growth boundary.
Okay.
As a second intergovernmental agreement that will allow us to be able to put the pump station in.
Great.
And to access the right-of-way in that area. It gets a little complicated, but I think in the final evaluation, it should go fairly smoothly.
No, that helps. I know there's been some ambiguity and some delays and some, so I just wanted to get some clarity.
It really has been a moving target. We did spend about 6 weeks ironing out some, and maybe closer to 8 weeks, ironing out some differences of opinion on who has to absorb cost overruns. The original agreement had the city responsible for 100% of the cost overruns, and we were able to work with the county where they're willing to contribute their engineering costs as part of their contribution if we incur a cost greater than what our total project budget is. And that total project budget, you'll see it in 2 weeks, but remembering it's in the $4.5 million range.
Okay. Well, all right. Thank you so much for all that.
Any other questions for Rick when he's on the hot seat? No? All right. Thank you, sir. Second opportunity and last opportunity for citizen input. Anybody wants to
quickly run up and give us anything? No, not seeing anything? All right, Kim, action review.
I just want to remind the council, there's a work session next Wednesday at 6 PM. If you cannot attend, if you could please let me know so I can make sure we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Action review, you've approved the consent agenda, you've adopted ordinance 1497, ordinance 1499, and you've approved ordinance 1500 to come up for second reading on January 16th, 2019.
Great.
And in case you didn't remember, that work session is to develop the job description to replace your city administrator.
We know.
So he really wants us to show up.
No one can be there.
Notice the project list that he has.
All of us are out of town.
Yeah. Joe, do we have an exec session this evening to start the year?
We do not.
Okay,
Oh, I love you again, Joe.
great. I
Thanks.
will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. And Mr. Garvey, did I hear that from you?
That was his first second of his career.
All right, so motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Barwick to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night, Cammy, and Happy New Year.